Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on the webinar. Some of you are coming from a long ways away. I'm actually in Toronto, Canada right now. I finished up a really cool program. I got to meet one of my mentors. I've just been a big fan of Dan Sullivan's for a long time and attended his 10x multiplier training. And it was mind-blowing. So for those of you who are on the fence about attending the October event in LA, I would absolutely recommend it because I'm going to be sharing a lot of insights that I learned from Dan Sullivan in Strategic Coach. I'm going to share those insights about how we can transform our practice with some of his tools. So today, thanks for being with us, and it's going to be a great discussion, a great webinar. Cade, thanks for putting these on. Really appreciate it. But today I'm going to be talking about stress, thyroid hormones, and belly fat, and I'm just going to go through some of the context so that when you're looking at your patients who, they may have a little sag when you see anybody with belly fat on the street, what you can do is just walk up to them and say, hey, I can help, and then lift up their shirt and show them what you can help them get rid of. So that's my goal with this. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. But when we talk about belly fat, if you look at motivating factors, one of the biggest motivating factors that brings people in is belly fat. And actually, I had a lady who came up to me after an event. She's 90 years old. Her name's Noma. She said, Reagan, that was amazing, but you have a lot of work to do, and we've got to do this work fast. I've got to get rid of, and then she pats on her belly and she said, I want to get rid of this thing. I do not want to be buried with this thing still on me. I have to give birth to my watermelon. And so she worked with us for several months, and we took that watermelon down to about the size of a grapefruit, and just super exciting. So no matter what age your patients are, they can still get rid of this belly fat. But today we're going to be streaming in all of these different topics: stress, thyroid hormones, belly fat, because I know it comes up in your practices. Excuse me. And a lot of you have emailed me like, oh, what do I do? So our training coming up is actually going to shed a lot of light on how to treat weight loss and body types. And that was our last webinar. Today I'm just going to go through more of how you can present it in your dinner lectures. So welcome everybody, and let's jump right in. So first types of stress, there's physical stress, chemical stress, emotional stress. Now, you guys, you realize you have to create a construct that people can relate to. So where do we have physical traumas from? Well, physical traumas, they can be from accidents. That can be from roughhousing with your siblings as a kid, being bucked off a horse. It can be from lots of areas. Physical trauma can also be, the amount of strain you put on your body if you're sitting too long. Sitting is the new smoking. So if you're sitting for more than 8 hours a day, it's got the same health risks as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So one thing I recommend is just take up smoking. At least you'll walk outside to puff a cigarette. No, I'm joking. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that with these physical activities, you get your patients engaged. But the very first question you want to have in your history is, what physical traumas have you had? I've had lots of patients who have come who struggle with thyroid issues. And as I start to question, we find out that sure enough, they've had 3 or more whiplashes, which reduces your thyroid function by 60%. So you really want to look at these physical traumas. Chemical exposure. We're exposed to over 82,000 chemicals every given week, according to the EPA, and only about a third of those have been tested to be safe. And unfortunately, even the ones that have been tested, they don't cross-test them, so they're not introducing a bunch of different chemicals to you. It's not necessarily safe. So chemicals are rampant in our society, and a lot of people think, well, organic's expensive or it's just trendy. But really, if you look at it, every single body of water in the United States, you can find traces of Prozac in it. You can find medication in virtually every municipal source of water. There's not one single source that's been found yet that has not been shown to have contamination. So that's a brand new study that came out. So chemical exposures, a lot of it is our manufacturing, it's the plastics, it's the air we breathe, the water we drink, but and the food we eat, but unfortunately, so many of the chemical toxins these days are actually coming from pharmaceutical agents. And I don't know if you guys realize what's happened with Monsanto's, or if you've looked at that at all. But Monsanto's, actually, Bayer is buying out Monsanto, and Monsanto says they dominate the market when it comes to pesticides and herbicides. But now Bayer is in that process of buying them for $66 billion with a B. That's a huge amount of money, because what Bayer sees, and Bayer is actually a German company, and GMOs aren't even legal in Germany, but what Bayer's trying to do is show that there's a secondary product that uses genetics that is non-toxic, and Bayer is going to have a monopoly. Their plan is to have a monopoly on genetically modified seeds in Germany as well, or in Europe as well. And so this is something I wish Apple, or a big company. I heard Dave Asprey. He was actually, it was a post that he put on. He said, I wish Apple would just buy out just put money into this. Apple, get some big companies to buy out Monsanto and then just stop the operation altogether, because it's going to destroy our environment, and it's already very bad. But now you've got Bayer, who right now the majority of what they make are pharmaceutical agents. But now what they've done is they're purchasing Monsanto, so they're going to be 49% healthcare and 49% chemicals. And the other 2% will be, various other businesses that they run. But that is scary. So we have to watch out for that, because chronic disease right now, it's tougher to treat patients with chronic disease now than it was 10 years ago when I first started practicing. And I think a lot of it is all the medications people have been put on, because it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. I mean, according to the CDC, the medication use has increased 50% between 2007 and 2010. So you and I have a big job at our hands. And this chemical stress is coming from all angles. It's the makeups, it's the perfumes, it's the deodorant we all wear. Well, hopefully we wear something, but it's the alcohol we consume. All these chemicals can build up in our body and create an environment that leads to inflammation. Emotions. I mean, where do we have emotional trauma? That can be in our relationships. Stress, that can be in the lack of exercise, can freeze us up emotionally. We don't feel as good. This emotional stress is also causing inflammation. You can look at direct correlations with cortisol. You can look at sex hormones. When there's emotional triggers going on in life, your reproductive hormones just start shutting down. Your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, because cortisol is dominant, and it's turning off those other downstream hormones that aren't as necessary for your survival. I mean, if you look at belly fat and you say, well, what about the food pyramid? Well, unfortunately, we followed the food pyramid for 60 years. I mean, Eisenhower was the president that basically got the mandate to ban all saturated fats in the country, and we ended up with this lopsided food pyramid that focused on a heavy diet of grains, cereals, breads, biscuits, pastas, all those tasty things that have a nice crunch. But now we have more chronic disease and autoimmunity and more obesity than we've ever had. So a more healthy food pyramid may be one that's got a healthy, abundant supply of good fats and great vegetables, the cruciferous family. You got some meats on there, and then at the top you've got your starches and your fruits. It's very lopsided, where you want to be getting maybe 20% of your calories from carbohydrates instead of 60 to 70%, which has been the standard ideas. So in our healthcare, what we've done is we've taken away people's ability to heal, because what's at the core of healing is nutrition. And when you start removing that core, then people are left without a foundation. Like, you look at the studies of nutrigenomics, and you take vitamin D, for example. 70% of Americans are depleted in vitamin D. And vitamin D is a precursor for all of your sex hormones, all of your hormones, androgen hormones for you men out there. But vitamin D can also mitigate your immune system, so it can help diminish inflammation. It also helps with recovery. They've done research on athletes who consume vitamin D, and they found that just by consuming a small amount, which is like 1,000 international units per day with athletes increased their recovery by over 30%. So it's a big deal. Now, a lot of you are running vitamin D on your patients, and you look at those numbers, and if you look at serum vitamin D, if anyone's below 25, that's critical mass, but you want to have their levels up around 50 to 60. Now, the only way, if you supplement somebody on vitamin D and they take about 1,000 IUs per day, their serum blood levels will come up about 5 IUs. 5 points is all in the test. If they're doing 1,000 milligrams a day, you get them retested in a month, and it will go up maybe 5 points. So this will give you a little perspective. If your patient comes in and let's say they're 20 points lower than where you'd like them, then that may mean that you need to get them on 10,000 IUs over the next month and then retest. We don't want them on too high of a level because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, and it can create its own problems if they're overdosing. It can hurt the kidneys, and it can cause the same reactions as too little of vitamin D: lack of development, lack of recovery, overproduction of certain hormones, underproduction of others. It will shut down the endocrine system. So don't over medicate them with vitamin D. Don't do too much. That 50 IUs, it gets a little crazy. But you take vitamin D. You look at magnesium. Americans are so depleted in magnesium, and the best place you can find it is right in those leafy greens, that the dense part of the chlorophyll, that green stuff. That's where you're going to have lots of good magnesium. Magnesium, if you look at what it does, not only will it help modulate your thyroid to produce better hormones, but magnesium will also help your muscles relax. It will provide good fuel for your brain, and magnesium is one of the key components for building a healthy immune system. So start thinking about this base, because it's being taken away, and if we don't start giving our patients better information, testing better, then they're going to have nothing to turn to but some of the old conventional medicine, which will tell them, well, count your calories, eat less, exercise more, and that may actually be doing more harm than good. So if you look at this, some of the things, yes, insurance company has been part of the problem. We know Monsanto's, Bayer, the way we've manipulated food. You look at the modern day healthcare, allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine is actually contributing to probably the most amount of deaths annually than anything else. And so it's something we need to start really considering. Because what it's doing, what's happening downstream is we're getting conditions called leaky gut. So this inflammation that's being triggered by leaky gut is systemic. It can affect your sinuses, your mouth. It can affect your brain. You'll get more depression, more ADHD. Your skin with rosacea, eczema, psoriasis. It can affect your thyroid, your colon with constipation, your adrenals. You'll get more fatigue. And then the joints, you get headaches, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis. All these things start building up. So these stressors, the chemical stress, the environmental stress that we have, you look at the physical stress, and then you look at stress not only from the emotions, but if you look at stress that's created from infectious disease, that's huge. If you have an overgrowth of bacteria in your gut, then what's going to happen is you're going to have more inflammation. And those pathogens, you can have yeast. It can create pathogenic influences in your gut, which causes more inflammation. Food particles can do that. Soy, corn, wheat. Those are some of your big ones. Sugar, no more than 25 grams of sugar per day if you're trying to reverse leaky gut. I think sugar is probably one of the key ones. I've mentioned her book quite often, but Gut by Julian Enders, that's kind of her whole philosophy, and she's kind of like a no-frills young scientist from Germany. You look at stress, toxins, drugs. Of course, NSAIDs are the worst. Acetaminophen, any of those non-steroidal anti-inflammatories are going to cause this inflammatory process. And then what happens is the more inflammation you have, the more that you have these cytokines that can affect the physiology of your GI system. So this mast cell that our bodies produce, they have this effect on your brain and gut axis. And so they can translate the stress signals into the release of a wide range of neurotransmitters. So if you have massive amounts of epinephrine and norepinephrine, cortisol, then what's going to happen is you're going to get these pro-inflammatory cytokines that the mast cells are triggering the brain to release down into the gut, which it's just this vicious cycle of chronic inflammation, chronic overwhelm on the digestive system. If you look at melatonin, most of us, we know about melatonin. I don't recommend taking it on a regular basis because, once again, it's a hormone. And the more you're using a hormone, you're manipulating your endocrine system so that your body, it quits producing those hormones on its own. So melatonin, it is an important mediator of the gut-brain axis, and it has been shown to exhibit important protective effects against stress-induced lesions in the GI tract. So one of the things that has the inverted relationship with melatonin is going to be cortisol. So cortisol is high, melatonin's low. Melatonin's high, cortisol's low. They balance each other out. That's the yin yang of those hormones. And you can see if you've got proper melatonin, you're getting a good night's rest, then that good night's sleep is going to, not only will you burn fat 400 times more efficiently when you're sleeping properly, but that melatonin at night is going to repair your gastrointestinal lining so that you don't have those lesions. Especially this is critical with anyone with leaky gut or especially diverticulitis. If you look at probiotics, do probiotics help? Well, absolutely, but you've got to have the right probiotics, because some probiotics, you can take them and that person will blow up. They'll have a histamine reaction and their body will reject those probiotics. So certain probiotics we like to use, Prescript Assist has a very good range of diversity. It's got the pre and probiotics. Definitely recommend adding that in. There's certain probiotics that lead to better outcomes with IBS, and Metagenics has some great formulas there. So make sure you're using a trusted source, because if you have good, healthy bacteria, you're going to have a better mood. Your gut bacteria influence everything because you've got more nerve endings in your intestinal tract than you do in your entire spine. And so those nerve endings are taking in these neuropeptides, and these neuropeptides are actually creating an entire host of different feelings and different behaviors and different moods. So I think it's a beautiful process if you can get your gut healthy, and that's why they say your gut's your second brain. The other thing you want to look at is if you're looking at serotonin production and especially those tryptophan precursors. Well, it's interesting because if you have too high of levels of serotonin in your gut and they're not actually it's not getting uptake through the neuropeptides and through the nerves in your gut, then what's going to happen is that high level of serotonin can cause more gut inflammation. So too much serotonin in the wrong places is not going to be lead to ideal outcomes. So when you're looking at your patients, you want to make sure, do you have proper gut flora? Because if you're adding in just straight up tryptophan to their whole regimen, that can cause other problems downstream, or upstream is probably the more accurate terminology. So here's some study. This is 2011, John Cryan. His team fed half the mice with Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and this strain of bacteria is known to be good for the gut. Mice with enhanced gut flora not only kept swimming for longer, but their blood was also found to contain fewer stress hormones. They performed better in memory and learning tests than their unenhanced peers. So little bacteria goes a long ways. Now, you've probably seen this mice with their longevity and their endurance with ginseng as well. Very interesting. So if we start adding in some ginseng with the Lactobacillus rhamnosus, you're going to see enhanced performance in mice. Now, that doesn't always translate into humans because we have different species inside of us, but it gives us a good reflection on the potential for us having positive outcomes with good, healthy bacteria. You look at depression. Depression is no longer considered just to be a chemical imbalance. It's actually considered to be more of an inflammatory issue. And this inflammation can become systemic. It can be, not only can the inflammation cause depression, but You can have more pain in your body, more joint pain, more fibromyalgia like symptoms. You can be more tired. You can have symptoms that are far reaching, and depression and loneliness are actually, they take years off of your life, just like obesity. If a person is obese, they've got 7 years taken off their life just right out of the gates. If they're morbidly obese, that number jumps to 14 or more. So depression, it actually mimics those numbers because it's an inflammatory process, just like obesity is chronic inflammation. You look at headaches. A lot of us, we kind of bypass it. We don't think it's that big of a deal, but headaches can be a very big deal. We want to get right on top of those, because if the headaches are sticking around for a long time, not only are they going to get tired and worn out, but those headaches are going to cause more inflammation, poor thought processes, and just an overall lack of energy, a lack of enjoyment in your life. A lot of us, what we need to do is we need to start focusing on, where are they coming from? Most headaches are going to be, the number one cause is going to be dehydration. The number two cause can be tension, so muscle tension, neck tension, and then number three is going to be chronic inflammation. So if there's something in your gut, if there's something neurotransmitter-wise that isn't looking proper, look at that. You can look at hormones. That's going to be your number four cause. So one of the things you want to do is, look at your labs. Your patients have all been told, hey, everything looks normal. Your labs are great. And then you say, okay, good, I'm glad your labs look normal. And you just keep moving forward, going into your treatment. But what you really want to do is say, I need a copy of those labs. There's also going to be some other labs that we're going to want to run, because you want to take those lab values and you want to put them in a functional, accurate lab range. Now, Doctor's Choice, they do a great job of condensing this for you, giving you nice graphs so that you have an easy readout that comes with recommendations. So get on that. You're going to get training from Dr. Taylor in LA in just a few weeks from now. We'll be there October 15th, 16th, and 17th. So get signed up for that. Get registered right away. And then we'll go through these labs for you. But hopefully that will give you a better idea of how you can really interpret labs and what they mean. When you're talking about thyroid, your thyroid in your patients who have belly fat that they're trying to get rid of, one of the things you want to look at is not only is thyroid important for bone metabolism and immunity, but it also helps with regulating all the metabolic processes in your body. So the interesting thing, the correlation that we're starting to see is that your mitochondria in your cells are actually influenced by the bacteria in your gut. That they may have migrated from bacteria. They may have actually evolved and then migrated into the cells. And the bacteria, start using the mitochondria as a powerhouse for them in these cells so that it feeds the bacteria. Because remember, bacteria are looking for a place just to hang out and grow. They're looking for a healthy environment. That's their survival mechanism. And it's pretty interesting if you go all the way back, it's probably the bacteria that created the mitochondria in the first place, and that are facilitating the energy levels in your cells, because the bacteria, once again, they're trying to get the cells to feed them. So thyroid is going to be one of those critical components. If you look at the more severe panic attacks, the higher the TSH levels were. In addition, severity of anxiety correlated negatively with free T4 levels. So emotions are directly connected to your thyroid hormones. You'll see a higher relapse in Graves', and Graves' is the number one autoimmune disease right now in our country in people who have too much stress. You'll see the Hashimoto's as well. So first thing you want to look at when you're looking at your thyroid labs is you don't just want to focus on TSH. You also want to look at T3 and T4, free T3, free T4, reverse T3 will show you leptin resistance. All these numbers are going to be critical so that you can find out, is this truly a thyroid issue? And if it is, then how do we address it? Well, it depends on, if it truly is or not. And it's pretty easy to address a primary thyroid issue, but it's only about 10% of cases that's a true primary thyroid issue in in women anyways. In men, if they have thyroid hypothyroidism, it's going to be a true thyroid issue in about 40%. So if you have patients who have cold hands and cold feet, they're tired all the time, they've got hair loss and thinning, they're constipated, they're putting on weight, they could have some thyroid symptoms. And that's something you want to jump on top of right away, because not only will thyroid cause weight gain, you can see in this image here, this is from Dr. Berg's book, The 7 Principles of Fat Burning. I highly recommend you get it. But you can see there's fat that gets put on everywhere. So that's going to be a thyroid body type. You can see the pot belly, that's going to be more liver. You can see the saddlebags, that's ovaries, and then the lower belly fat, that's adrenals. So biggest thing that I want you to remember from this webinar today is that if you're going to treat belly fat, then the first thing you have to look at is, well, what's going on with the stress levels and what's that stress creating in the body? And then you also want to look at how's the thyroid behaving, because the only way we can have success in helping people resolve these major issues is we have to support the detoxification and enzyme pathways. That's where you've got to look at their MTHFR, get some genetics going, understand and identify their food sensitivities. So these food sensitivities, there could be, there could be a ton of foods that are causing low-grade inflammation. Now, I mentioned some of the basic ones, but I've ran my test several times, and one thing that always surprised me is watermelon cucumbers. Those, we think they're fine for us, but a lot of times they can be a food sensitivity. You want to identify hormonal imbalances. Look at cortisol first. Look at all of the other hormones, but make sure that you focus on the areas that are most depleted. Infections, is there yeast, is there fungus, do they have parasites or bacteria overgrowth? Do they have any gut dysbiosis? So that means, is their bacteria not fully cultured? Are there dietary changes that need to be made? I mean, these are the funny thing with diet is when people just make the change, they're always shocked at how much better they feel. And it just creates, all they need is a few tweaks to their diet. You start addressing their vitamin deficiencies, they start feeling a lot better. You want to correct their inflammation and then eliminate leaky gut and restore gut barriers, and that's really where you start getting some good results. So getting answers, that's the main thing we're looking to do. We're looking to not only just help a person get healthy, but we want them to stay healthy. So we want to get them as healthy as possible with natural medicine, and then make sure we're keeping them healthy. And so one of the first things, the next step that your patients are going to take is they're going to come see you for an initial evaluation so that they can figure out what the cause is of their health conditions. And that's where you're going to provide the right testing, the right treatments, the right teaching. You're going to give them a systematic step-by-step training. You're going to mentor them and hold them accountable. And then there's going to be classes and homework. So all these things are going to give you massive amounts of success in your overall treatment plans, in your patient care. And you're going to see your practice just really start to grow. So 2 choices today. The first choice you have is to get out to our events, and that's going to change your life. So let me show you. We've got some very cool events coming up. And these events will give you a much better picture. So we've got our Salt Lake City Functional Medicine Boot Camp. That's going to be November 11th and 12th. We've got Einstein's Medicine. That's our next event right around the corner. This is in LA. And that event is November 15th, 16th, and 17th. So you've just got a few more days to register. And we've had so many people register. I can't wait for this. It's going to be a completely unique event. Coming up, we've got another boot camp, level 2, like I mentioned, and level 3 is going to be February 12th, 2017. In LA, we'll be back December 3rd, 4th for session 4. Session 1 is going to be March 18th and 19th in 2017. Level 4 is May 13th in Salt Lake. Level 1, August 19th, 2017. LA Session 2, June 24th, 25th, 2017. So get ready for all these super cool events. Can't wait to see you guys there. Thanks so much for being part of this webinar, part of the Go Wellness family. And email us, info@GoWellness. Some of you are not clients, and so we want to talk to you. We want to see if there's certain ways that we can help you grow your practice into the practice that you love. So feel free to email us at info@GoWellness. Fill out our surveys, and we love you guys. very much, and we'll talk to you soon.